He was used to getting his way. A billionaire, powerful, entitled. So when his food order was delayed, he snapped. In front of everyone, he stood, pointed, and yelled at the young black waitress like she was nothing. But what happened next silenced the entire restaurant. She stood tall, looked him right in the eye, and said one sentence, just one, that left the billionaire speechless and had everyone around him clapping. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Whether you're here for the first time or part of this amazing story-loving community, I appreciate you more than you know. Today's story is about courage, class, and the power of words when spoken at just the right moment. If powerful, emotional stories move you, if you believe in respect, justice, and moments that flip the script, then you're in the right place. Please take a second to like this video, subscribe for more eye-opening tales, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Now, let's begin the story that turned a moment of humiliation into one of unforgettable power. A sudden hush fell over Lupin, one of the most exclusive dining spots in downtown Manhattan. Like a bolt of lightning ripping through a calm sky, forks paused mid-bite, silverware froze in outstretched hands, and every patron's gaze swung toward the elegant corner table. There, Ethan Caldwell, a white billionaire known for his icy glare and haughty demeanor, snapped to his feet. His bespoke navy blue suit caught the soft glow of the crystal chandeliers. Each seemed gleaming under their pale yellow light, only hiding the air of power he exuded. His face flushed crimson with anger as he stared down at the petite black server before him, Sophia Jenkins, trembling yet striving to remain composed. I don't understand how a prestigious restaurant like Leopen can have someone like you serving me. Ethan boomed, each word a dagger slicing through the silence. His eyes, full of contempt, swept over Sophia as though she were a cheap trinket. Sophia stood rooted to the spot, knuckles white around her silver tray as she fought the tremor in her arms. Her black and white uniform, once a crisp emblem of professionalism, felt like a fragile shield for her dignity. Her deep brown eyes, usually bright, now clouded with pain and shame. Yet her lips stayed firmly pressed together, refusing to betray weakness. From the corner of her eye, Sophia saw pity, surprise, and confusion flit across the faces of other diners. A middle-aged woman in a red silk dress leaned toward her companion in hushed tones, while an elderly couple at a distant table exchanged worried glances. No one dared speak. The tension in the room was palpable, as if a single cough might shatter the moment. "Didn't you hear me?" Ethan snapped, his voice even sharper. He jabbed a finger at Sophia, his arrogance on full display. "I said, I don't want someone like you serving me. I came here for a top-tier meal, not some cheap display of your so-called diversity." His brutal words rang out crystal clear, chilling the entire restaurant. Soft gasps fluttered through the room as expressions of shock turned to outrage. Even the pianist in the corner, who had never paused mid-melody, stopped playing, fingers frozen above the keys. Richard Harris, the restaurant manager, stood off to the side, pale and stunned. He'd never imagined witnessing such a tense, sensitive scene in his own establishment, especially under his watch. Sophia felt her chest tighten, each breath harder than the last. She'd endured accidental or offhand slights about her skin color her whole life, but she had never faced such overt, merciless public humiliation. As Ethan's tirade bore down on her, she felt on the brink of collapse until a flicker of strength surged through her as she pictured her daughter Lily's determined smile. That image of her little girl dreaming of ballet and a brighter future gave Sophia a glimmer of inner resolve. "Sir," Sophia said at last, her voice steady despite a slight quiver, eyes meeting Ethan's without flinching, even as tears threatened to spill. "If you like, I can fetch the manager for you to discuss any concerns about who's serving your table." Her calm, respectful response stunned Ethan into silence. The composure she displayed in stark contrast to his irrational rage drew looks of admiration from several guests. But rage had already taken hold of Ethan. He slammed his fist on the table, sending a ruby-red wine glass crashing and staining the pristine white tablecloth. "I don't need to talk to the manager. I want you out of here now. You're useless and embarrassment. How dare you stand there thinking you're fit to serve someone like me?" He roared, each syllable dripping with disdain. Across the room, eyes filled with compassion, anger, and solidarity turned to Sophia. And in that moment, she understood that she and the dignity of anyone who looked like her stood at the center of a much larger battle. A pivotal decision crystallized in her mind. Tonight would change her life forever. When Ethan Caldwell's cruel words still resonated in Sophia's mind, the image of her daughter Lily shone more clearly than ever, like a tiny light in the pitch-black darkness of her life. In that humiliating moment, Sophia remembered why she'd pushed herself to the brink of exhaustion to stay at Lipa, the restaurant where biased stares and cutting remarks were an everyday threat. Sophia Jenkins's life had never been strewn with rose petals. Born and raised in Queens, a rundown neighborhood on the fringes of Manhattan's opulence, she was all too familiar with narrow streets, dusty old apartment buildings, and crowded sidewalks that rarely felt safe or welcoming. From an early age, Sophia understood discrimination, classmates mocking her, teachers doubting her abilities, and suspicious glances from adults whenever she stepped into a store. Her parents were simple laborers, spending their lives working tirelessly for every penny to feed Sophia and her two younger brothers. Yet, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't break free from the cycle of poverty and prejudice. Sophia grew up believing that only education and hard work could rewrite her fate. She graduated high school with honors and dreamed of becoming a professional ballet dancer. But life rarely goes according to plan. At 20, Sophia discovered she was unexpectedly pregnant by a boyfriend she trusted completely, only to be abandoned the moment he learned the truth. Overnight, she became the target of harsh criticism from family and neighbors. Cruel nicknames trailed her through the streets, and rumor-filled whispers chased her wherever she went. Still, Sophia refused to give up her child. She believed her daughter deserved to live and to be loved, no matter how harsh the world could be. Lily's birth marked the most profound turning point in Sophia's life. The moment she first gazed into that tiny face, she knew she had no choice but to become stronger than ever. Sophia took every job she could find, waitressing at greasy diners, cleaning offices overnight, even doing laundry by hand for local families. Every dollar came at the cost of sweat and tears. Yet bills piled up faster than she could pay. Old debts lurked, just around the corner, always threatening to pull her under the crushing weight of poverty. But the deepest wounds weren't financial. They lay in the daily prejudices that Sophia and Lily endured. At just 7 years old, Lily had already seen classmates refuse to play with her because of the color of her skin. Sophia's heart ached each time she found her daughter crying quietly in their tiny bedroom, her innocent eyes unable to comprehend why anyone would be so cruel. Those moments tore Sophia's heart in two, but they also steeled her resolve that Lily would never suffer life the way she had. So when Sophia was offered a position at Lipan, she knew it could be the rare door to a brighter future for her daughter. Leon wasn't just an upscale restaurant frequented by the wealthy and powerful. It was renowned for its ruthless hiring standards. The fact that they'd even brought on a black server, like Sophia, was almost unheard of. She understood from day one that she'd have to work twice or even 3 times as hard as her colleagues to earn respect. From her first day at Lipan, Sophia sensed the subtle prejudice of some white coworkers. Cold shoulders in the break room, hushed conversations that fell silent whenever she entered, and weary looks from certain diners when she approached their table. But Sophia refused to let doubt take root. Each morning she woke 2 hours earlier, ironing her uniform to a crisp shine, rehearsing her service routine in front of the mirror, memorizing that day's entire menu, and even learning every wine on the list by heart. She believed that if she pushed hard enough, she'd force people to see her worth. Tonight, however, Ethan Caldwell's outburst felt like a sucker punch to all her efforts. For the first time in years of battling prejudice, Sophia felt completely unmet. Ethan's naked contempt didn't just insult her. It struck at the very foundation of her last fragile hope, that despite the world's injustices, there was still room for decency and dignity. Standing in Manhattan's most exclusive dining room, Sophia Jenkins realized she'd reached a crossroads, but she would not let Ethan Caldwell or anyone else dictate her fate or Lee's. No matter how dark the road ahead, she vowed never to give up, because Sophia knew better than anyone. Beyond the world's harsh prejudices, her little Lily still needed her to be stronger than ever. Every day working at Leopen felt like a test of Sophia's patience and endurance, especially after the humiliating ordeal with Ethan Caldwell. Outwardly, she kept her composure and professionalism, but deep inside her heart ached whenever she met the icy stares of her white coworkers or heard the malicious whispers trailing her every step. From the moment she started at Leopen, Sophia realized she didn't fit in like the others. Her white colleagues laughed, chatted, and relaxed together in the staff break room. But the moment she walked in, their conversation would die on the spot. They'd dive back into their work or turn their backs as if her presence spoiled the atmosphere. Sophia forced a smile and tried small talk, but usually got only curt nods or clipped distant replies in return. Once she overheard two of them, Emma and Caroline, talking in the hallway, not realizing she was close by. "I don't get why they even hired her," Emma complained in a tone of irritation. "Probably just to look more diverse," Caroline replied dismissively. "She'll never be able to serve our high-end clientele properly." Hearing that felt like a knife to Sophia's heart. She steadied herself, took a slow, deep breath to hold back tears, then hurried into the kitchen. She'd grown used to prejudice, but every time she heard it aimed directly at her, the pain felt brand new. Still, Sophia refused to let their bias defeat her. If anything, it made her more determined to prove she belonged. Every morning, she arrived at Leopen at least 2 hours before her shift, meticulously inspecting every detail of her station. She polished each glass until it sparkled, straightened every corner of her pristine white tablecloths, and arranged the silverware perfection. She memorized the menu and learned every wine's name and origin, then spent her downtime studying pairings, so she could advise guests flawlessly. Her tireless efforts didn't go entirely unnoticed. A few regular patrons initially seemed surprised to see her, but after a few visits they began praising her by name. Those small moments of recognition fueled her resolve to keep fighting daily injustice. Yet alongside the kind guests, prejudice still lurked. One busy evening, Sophia was assigned to serve Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery, a wealthy couple famous for their huge bills and impossibly high standards. The moment Sophia approached their table to introduce the evening specials, Mrs. Montgomery glanced her over head to toe, as if appraising an unwelcome intruder. "You're our server tonight?" Mrs. Montgomery asked, her tone dripping with skepticism. She never took her eyes off Sophia. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sophia, and I'll be taking care of you this evening." "I hope you enjoy your time here at Leopen," Sophia replied warmly, striving to ignore the thinly veiled disdain. "Oh, I thought someone different would be serving us," Mrs. Montgomery said, trailing off and shooting her husband a look that begged his agreement. He simply frowned and stared at Sophia as if she were a mistake the restaurant had made. "I assure you I'll do everything I can to make your evening exceptional," Sophia continued gently, masking the sting of their attitude. "Fine," Mrs. Montgomery said reluctantly. "Just don't disappoint us." She dismissed Sophia with a small wave. All night long, Mrs. Montgomery quibbled over every dish. Complaints about temperature, flavor, even the presentation. Despite the chef checking each plate personally before it left the kitchen, when Sophia politely explained, Mrs. Montgomery brushed her off, growing increasingly hostile. Finally, as Sophia brought their dessert, Mrs. Montgomery deliberately knocked over a glass of red wine onto the carpet and said coolly, "See, someone like you should stick to cleaning up messes. You're clearly unsuited to serving us." Her words landed like a brutal slap. Sophia's hands shook as she knelt to blot the stain, but she held her head high, refusing to let them see her break. She knew this battle against prejudice was far from over, and she would not let pain force her to give up. At Leopen, every single day was a silent, relentless battle. Sophia understood that more than anyone, but she would never back down, not for herself, and most of all, not for Lily and the future she so desperately dreamed of. After the wounding remarks from Mrs. Montgomery, Sophia understood more than ever that every day at Leopen was a quiet, relentless battle. Yet, when she stepped into the restaurant on Friday evening, she immediately sensed something even more tense in the air than usual. The crystal lights shimmered over perfectly arranged tables and chairs. The staff moved with extra urgency, and Richard Harris, Leopen's normally unflappable manager, paced between tables with a worried look plastered on his face. Tonight, Richard's cheeks were flushed and beads of sweat dotted his brow. The moment he saw Sophia arrive, he hurried over, lowering his voice to a tense whisper. "Sophia, we have a very high-profile guest this evening. Ethan Caldwell just booked a last-minute table. You've heard of him, right?" At the mention of that name, Sophia shivered. Ethan Caldwell, one of New York's richest billionaires, notorious for his openly racist comments. The press had covered his contempt for people of color countless times, even calling out his refusal to do business with a company simply because its owner was black. "I know who he is," Sophia replied softly, hiding her unease. "But I'm not serving his table tonight, right?" Richard gave a quick, reassuring shake of his head. "No. Julian has that assignment, but please be extra careful. Ethan Caldwell is notoriously demanding. We can't afford any mistakes tonight." Sophia nodded, feeling some pressure ease, but not nearly enough. The tension in the dining room seemed to thicken by the second. Her co-workers exchanged anxious glances, all well aware of the trouble Ethan's presence could bring. Minutes later, the front doors swung open. A small entourage entered, led by Ethan Caldwell himself. He strode in like a conquering general, cold, imperious, his sharp features lit by the overhead lights. He wore a tailored navy suit, a crisp white shirt monogrammed with his initials, and polished leather shoes whose heavy steps echoed on the hardwood floors. Behind him came his associate, Aaron Miller, polite but tense, and two burly black suited bodyguards, earpieces in place, scanning the room as if on high alert. The restaurant fell deathly silent. Nearby diners turned to watch with curiosity, apprehension, or awe. It was as if Ethan's arrival had sucked the life out of the space. Richard immediately stepped forward, bowing respectfully. He led the party to table 9, a VIP spot tucked into the restaurant's most elegant corner. From a distance, Sophia saw Ethan survey the room with haughty disdain, as though judging whether Leopold met his lofty standards. Sophia focused on her own tables, but her heart pounded. Julian, assigned to serve Ethan, looked equally on edge. He fussed over place settings, straightening napkins and glassware obsessively. Then, just as he wheeled a tray of champagne toward Ethan's table, disaster struck. Stepping into the kitchen to fetch the glasses, Julian's foot slipped on a stray lemon wedge. He crashed to the floor, the tray shattering in a spray of glass and spilled bubbles. Every head turned. Julian clutched his ankle. Pain etched across his face, surrounded by glittering shards. Richard rushed over, his complexion draining as he realized his key server for the night was out of commission. His eyes darted around the room until they settled on Sophia. "Sophia," he called, voice urgent and reluctant, "you'll have to take over Julian's table for Mr. Caldwell tonight. I know it's sudden, but there's no one else." Sophia felt her heart skip a beat. She met Richard's eyes, then looked toward Ethan's table. His cold, proud stare happened to fall on her, and she felt a shiver of dread, but she knew she couldn't refuse. She inhaled deeply, found her calm, and answered softly, "Understood, Richard. I'll do my very best." She smoothed her uniform one last time and approached Ethan's table with all the professionalism she could muster. As she drew near, Ethan gave her a cold once-over, his face flickering with disappointment and disdain, even before she spoke. "Good evening, Mr. Caldwell," Sophia said gently. "My name is Sophia, and I'll be taking care of you tonight." Ethan paused, his icy gaze fixed on her. A sneer curled his lips as he replied, "Fine. I hope you know what you're doing. I hate having to repeat myself." His curt words struck Sophia hard. She realized in that moment that tonight would be no ordinary shift. It might well be the greatest challenge she had ever faced. Yet once more she thought of Lily, her little girl, who believed in her and vowed she would not let anyone, not even Ethan Caldwell, make her falter. From the very moment Sophia introduced herself to Ethan Caldwell, she saw the contempt and disdain flash in his cold eyes. He made no effort to hide his disappointment that his server for the evening was a black woman like Sophia. Tilting his head, he appraised her from head to toe as though her very presence in this upscale restaurant were an affront to his status. "What was your name again?" Ethan asked, his gaze as icy as ever, each syllable dragged out as if bestowing a rare courtesy upon someone far beneath him. "I'm Sophia, sir." she repeated softly, forcing her voice to remain steady and betraying no hint of the tremor she felt inside. "I will be your primary server tonight." Ethan fell silent for a beat, his arrogant eyes narrowing before he offered a faint, smirking smile. "Sophia, a lovely name. But you know, I've dined in the finest establishments around the world, London, Paris, you name it. And I've rarely seen someone like you permitted to serve in places like these." Sophia's spine stiffened, a chill running down her back. His casual remark cut straight to the core of her identity and background. She swallowed the lump in her throat, determined to stay composed and polite. "Sir, I've undergone rigorous training to meet Lipon's highest standards. I'm confident I can provide you and your party with the most satisfying evening." A mocking curl teased Ethan's lips. "Oh, really? Well, then I'm dying to see just how high that standard is." He glanced at his companion, Aaron Miller, who shifted uncomfortably and looked away, unwilling to be part of Ethan's bitter banter. The two bodyguards behind him remained impassive. Throughout the night, Ethan sought every opportunity to make Sophia's job as difficult as possible. When she brought his requested bottle of wine, he pretended to scrutinize the label, then sighed theatrically. "I'm rather surprised you know how to open a bottle properly. Leopen must have invested a great deal in training someone like you." His words were a dagger to her pride. Her hands quivered for a moment, but she forced a polite smile as she poured his wine. "Sir, I've been trained just as thoroughly as every other server here," she replied calmly, though each word was laden with her silent hurt. But Ethan didn't stop there. When Sophia delivered the appetizer, he eyed the perfectly arranged plate, then looked back at her with a sardonic smirk. "I do hope you won't drop anything on my table. I've had clumsy servers like you ruin entire dinners for me before." By now, Sophia knew he was deliberately humiliating her in front of everyone. A few diners glanced over with awkward concern, but none spoke up. His cruel remarks, barely above a whisper, were loud enough to make her feel publicly disgraced. Her heart ached with a mix of anger and shame. Yet she maintained her professionalism. Gently setting the plate down, she answered in a measured tone, "I promise you, sir, you will not be disappointed." Ethan tilted his head again, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Oh, I'm already disappointed, but that's fine. I don't expect much more." He resumed his meal as if nothing had happened. Yet his cutting words echoed in Sophia's mind, and she had to draw on all her strength just to stand firm. The next moments dragged on in tension. Ethan found fault in every tiny detail, from the crispness of his napkin fold to the persuasiveness of her menu description. Implicit in each criticism was the message that she failed only because she wasn't his caliber, wasn't his skin color. When Sophia stepped away to fetch the main course, she heard Ethan quietly telling Aaron Miller, "See, this is why I insist on servers who are better fit. They can't even handle the basics. It's disgraceful that Leon stoops to this cheap diversity stunt." His words fell like a direct blow to her dignity. Leaning back against the kitchen wall, Sophia fought back tears. Everything in her wanted to break down, but she reminded herself that Ethan craved that very display of weakness. Taking a slow, steadying breath, she smoothed her uniform and stepped back into the dining room, determined that neither Ethan Caldwell nor anyone else would ever shatter her spirit. For on the surface she was just another server, but inside Sophia Jenkins was a strong, courageous woman who refused to let any hateful insult destroy her self-worth. From behind the kitchen door, Sophia drew in a deep breath, swallowing down all the humiliation and rage. Her heart felt crushed by every hateful word Ethan Caldwell had thrown at her, but she knew she couldn't let him or anyone see her weakness. Quietly, she fixed her gaze on the gleaming dining room, palms cold, steeling herself to carry on with professionalism. Cradling the pristine white plate of premium Wagyu steak, Sophia mustered her courage and stepped back into the dining room. As she approached Ethan's table, the entire restaurant seemed to pause. Every guest, whether intentionally or not, turned their eyes toward VIP Table 9, where Ethan sat, his familiar look of arrogant disdain on full display. Gently, she set the plate before him. "Sir, here's the Wagyu steak you requested. I hope you enjoy it." Ethan glanced at the dish, then fixed his icy gaze on Sophia. A cruel, mocking smile curved his lips. You know, Sophia, I've given this a lot of thought. You really don't belong here, he said loudly enough for the neighboring tables to hear. I don't blame you. Leah Penn must be so desperate to appear diverse that they're hiring people who clearly aren't qualified just to please the public. His words rang out sharply in the hushed dining room, creating a suffocating silence. Nearby, diners froze, their whispered conversations abruptly cut off as they looked on in shock and sympathy. Sophia's heart nearly stopped. She understood exactly what Ethan had meant, a blatant assault on her dignity and self-worth. Anger surged within her like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. Clamping down on her trembling resolve, she spoke in a calm, measured tone. Sir, I'm here because of my skills and hard work. Just like every one of my colleagues at Leah Penn, the restaurant never hires anyone based solely on their skin color. Ethan snorted in contempt, his eyes colder and more piercing than ever. Oh, really? Don't be naive, girl. You're here to bolster Leon's image. Make them look more progressive. Do you actually think someone like you deserves to stand here and serve me? His words stabbed Sophia's pride like an icy blade. But this time, something inside her snapped awake. She could no longer swallow this pain. Her dark eyes flashed with determination and courage she'd never shown before. Straightening her posture, she met his gaze heat, no longer avoiding his eyes or trembling. Her voice rang out clear and unwavering for everyone in the restaurant to hear. Mr. Caldwell, you may be able to buy a piece of steak, but you cannot buy kindness. Her statement swept through the room like a powerful wave, shattering the silence with its simple, potent truth. In an instant, every movement in Lupin halted. Guests and staff alike stood stunned, unable to believe that humble Sophia, the ever-professional server, had dared to stand up so boldly to a man as powerful as Ethan Caldwell. Even Ethan himself looked taken back, his face flushing as his usual arrogance was replaced by fury and confusion. His bodyguard shifted behind him, ready to intervene if things turned violent. Aaron Miller, sitting at Ethan's side, went pale and stared down at his plate, clearly wishing to avoid this confrontation. Sophia held his gaze for several seconds, waiting to see how he would react. No one else dared speak. The silence was almost electric. Finally, Ethan sprang to his feet, slamming his hands on the table, so hard the plate rattled. His eyes burned with rage. What did you just say to me, girl? How dare you insult me here? Do you even know who I am? Though her heart pounded, Sophia stood firm. Her voice remained steady as she replied, I know exactly who you are, Mr. Caldwell, but that doesn't give you the right to insult or demean anyone. I'm here to work, and I deserve to be treated with respect just like anyone else. Ethan's glare sharpened, and he drew in a strained breath, trying and failing to contain his fury. Pointing a trembling finger at Sophia, he spat out, You'll regret speaking to me like that. I promise you that. Then he stormed out, Aaron Miller and the two bodyguards rushing after him. The restaurant doors slammed shut behind them, leaving a heavy, unprecedented silence in their wake. Sophia remained standing, heart pounding in her chest. In that moment, she realized she had crossed a boundary she never thought she had the courage to approach. Whatever the future held, a small but growing sense of pride blossomed inside Sophia Jenkins. For the first time in her life, she did not stay silent in the face of injustice. And however difficult the road ahead, she knew she had already won something far more important, her own self-respect. The restaurant doors had just slammed shut behind Ethan Caldwell, but the echo of his rage still hung heavy in every corner of Leah Penn. Sophia stood frozen, the small triumph she felt moments before, now swiftly replaced by deep fear. She knew exactly who had just left. One of the most powerful billionaires in the city, a man who could destroy anyone's career with a single phone call. Chaos rippled through the dining room. Some guests leaned in to whisper, their eyes flicking toward Sophia with a mix of curiosity and sympathy. Others sat in stunned silence, faces taut with tension, as if they just witnessed something that could have terrible consequences. A few patrons quietly asked for their checks and slipped out, eager to escape the awkward confrontation. Richard Harris, the manager, his face ashen, hurried over to Sophia with panic in his eyes. He bent close, though his trembling voice was loud enough for her to hear. Sophia, Do you realize what you've done? You just stood up to Ethan Caldwell. He could have you fired with one phone call. Sophia forced down the lump in her throat, her eyes widening as she met Richard's. She understood every word he just said was true. Ethan did not make empty threats, yet she drew on the last reserve of calm she had. I'm sorry, Richard, she said quietly. I couldn't stay silent after what he said. I know this could cause serious trouble, but Richard cut her off, tension etched in every line of his face. He scanned the room. Everyone's eyes were still locked on them, then steered Sophia toward a quieter corner of the restaurant. Sophia, I know you're right, but the world isn't fair. Ethan isn't someone we can afford to anger. He won't stop at threats. Do you understand? Sophia bit her lower lip and gripped her uniform's hem to keep from shaking. She looked into Richard's eyes, clear and unwavering. I understand, Richard, but are we really going to bow our heads to people like Ethan Caldwell forever? Richard sighed heavily, helpless. Before he could answer, the restaurant doors burst open again. Ethan Caldwell was back, his face even more terrifying than before. Anger painted his features crimson, and his cold eyes swept the room before locking onto Sophia. He strode straight toward her, his two hulking bodyguards close behind. The tension was so thick you could hear every guest's intake of breath. Ethan stopped only a few feet away, jaw clenched, each word spat out with venom. Do you think a few words are enough to beat me? I could ruin your tiny life and career in one night. Sophia, let's see how that courage of yours holds up, then. He pointed a finger at her, his voice a chilling curse in the suffocating quiet. I'll make sure no restaurant in this city will ever hire you again. You'll regret ever insulting me. Sophia Jenkins, you'll soon learn the biggest mistake of your life was standing up to me. Sophia felt the world freeze around her, each threat cutting like shards of ice into her heart. But instead of fear, she felt a strange surge steadfastness and resolve that refused to bow to money and power. She met his furious gaze and spoke softly but clearly. I did not insult you, Mr. Caldwell. I simply refuse to accept your hatred. If you think that's worth destroying my life over, go ahead. But I will never regret standing up for my dignity. An absolute hush fell once more over Lupin. Ethan stared at her, stunned by her defiance, despite his threats. His face shifted through shock and fury before he spun on his heel and stormed out. No words, no last remarks. His entourage followed, and the door slammed shut behind them with finality. But Sophia felt no relief, only a surge of shock and dread. She knew Ethan had the power to turn his threats into reality, and the small life she'd fought so hard to build for herself. And her daughter Lily was now truly at risk. Her co-workers and the remaining guests watched her in silence, their eyes full of sympathy and concern. Richard stood beside her, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. His gaze was anxious yet supportive. I'll do everything I can to help you, Sophia, but get ready. Things are only going to get harder from here. Sophia nodded, gratitude and fear wearing in her chest. She understood now that tomorrow and every day after would never be the same. When the doors of Leopen slammed shut behind Ethan Caldwell once more, Sophia remained rooted in place as if turned to stone. His cruel threat still echoed in her mind, like a curse clinging to every breath. The dining room fell into a stunned silence for a few heartbeats before gradually returning to the soft murmur of whispers and sympathetic glances aimed her way, an atmosphere suffocating in its tension. Richard Harris, the restaurant manager, pale with worry, hurried over to Sophia. He squeezed her shoulder in a gesture meant to reassure her, though no words came to him. Just then, a middle-aged woman at a nearby table rose and approached with a gentle, understanding smile. Placing a comforting hand on Sophia's arm, she spoke in a warm, clear voice. Dear, I truly admire your courage. What you just did was remarkable. Not everyone has the strength to stand up to someone so powerful. Sophia looked up, her eyes glistening with genuine emotion. It was the first hint of warmth she'd felt since the ordeal began, a small balm amid the storm of her feelings. She nodded, voice catching. Thank you so much. I never intended for any of this to happen, but I couldn't bear it any longer. The woman gave her hand a final squeeze of encouragement, then returned to her table. One by one, Other diners stepped forward with words of support. "We completely understand and stand by you. You should be proud of yourself. Don't be afraid, dear. You did nothing wrong. We need more brave people like you in this world." An older gentleman, solemn in appearance with kind in his eyes, added, "I've seen a lot of injustice in my life. What you did tonight will inspire many others to fight against wrong. Stay strong, Sophia." Each word, each look of empathy was like a soothing salve to the raw ache and tension inside her. Sophia felt her racing heart begin to calm, only to have the fear creep back moments later, enveloping her thoughts once again. At closing time, when the last guest had finally departed, Sophia sat alone in the staff changing room, staring at her reflection in the small mirror. She saw a young woman with red, rimmed eyes, evidence of suppressed tears. Thoughts of her daughter, Lily, waiting for her in their modest queen's apartment flooded her mind. If Ethan truly carried out his threats, how would she and Lily survive? A soft knock on the door snapped her back to reality. Richard entered, concern softening his gaze. "Sophia, are you okay?" She managed a shaky nod. Her voice trembled as she confessed. I'm worried about what's coming next, Richard. I'm scared I'll lose this job, and I don't know how I'd feed my daughter." Richard sat beside her, offering a reassuring sigh. "I know Ethan is a dangerous man, and I understand your fear, but you're not alone. All of us here support you. I've spoken with Patrice, the restaurant owner, about what happened. She promised she'll stand by you." Sophia stared at him, eyes wide with relief. "Really?" Patrice said that. He nodded firmly. "She knows exactly who Ethan Caldwell is, but she also knows what Leopen truly stands for. She told me she would never let him destroy anyone's dignity here." Richard's words were a faint but hopeful light through the darkness in Sophia's mind. She knew this fight was far from over, and that uncertainty and anxiety lay ahead. But in this moment, buoyed by the support around her, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. Sophia rose, gently wiping away her tears. She resolved to stay strong. No matter what tomorrow brought, she would never give up hope, never bow to injustice, power, or money. And above all, she would keep fighting for Lily, the little girl who believed in her and needed her now more than ever. The next morning, the air at Leopen still crackled with unease and barely suppressed attention. Sophia stepped into the restaurant with a heavy heart, her eyes darting around wearily. Ethan Caldwell's menacing words still echoed in her mind like an invisible specter dogging her every move. And yet beneath that dread, Sophia sensed something entirely different, a surprising warmth waiting for her just around the corner. No sooner had she entered the staff area than Richard came rushing up, his voice edged with urgency, but also carrying a spark of hope. "Sophia, Patrice wants to see you right away. She's called an emergency meeting. Everyone's waiting in the conference room." Sophia's heart skipped a beat, anxiety surging anew. Richard gently laid a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry, Sophia. I'm certain she'll have your back. You know Patrice is fair." Gathering her courage, Sophia nodded and made her way down the hall to the large back conference room. When the door opened, she found every colleague, from servers and cooks to senior managers, already seated. The atmosphere was solemn, yet in their eyes she no longer saw the chill distance, but instead compassion and encouragement. At the head of the table stood Patrice Bennett, Leopen's owner, an iconic figure in New York's culinary scene, known for elegance, sharp mind, and unshakable resolve. Patrice seldom addressed the staff directly, but when she spoke, everyone listened. Sophia took a deep breath and sat in the empty chair, waiting as Patrice began. "I'm sure you all know why I called this emergency meeting," Patrice said, her voice clear and commanding. "Last night, we witnessed a deeply troubling incident in our restaurant, a place celebrated for its courtesy and respect." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle before continuing in a firmer tone. "I've been fully briefed on the hateful remarks and insults Mr. Ethan Caldwell directed at our employee Sophia. Let me be crystal clear. Leopen will never tolerate any form of racism or discrimination, no matter who it comes from, however wealthy or powerful." Sophia sat still, her eyes wide, her heart pounding with relief and pride. Patrice's resolute declaration made her feel safe and truly part of this team for the first time. Patrice softened slightly, but remained unwavering. I understand who Ethan Caldwell is and what he's capable of. I also recognize that standing up for Sophia may carry risks, but now is precisely the moment to prove that Leon is a place of integrity where every team member is respected and protected. She turned to Sophia with sincere warmth and respect. Sophia, you're not alone in this. I and everyone in this room stand by you. No one has a right to demean or degrade our staff, as Mr. Caldwell tried to do. I will not allow it to happen. A hushed silence followed. Then the room erupted in applause, a powerful wave of support washing over Sophia. Colleagues rose, came forward, and placed hands on her shoulders, squeezing in solidarity. We're with you, Sophia. Stay strong. Tears of gratitude streamed down Sophia's cheeks. For the first time, she felt truly recognized and shielded by the people around her. She looked at Patrice, her voice trembling with heartfelt emotion. Thank you, Patrice. I was so afraid that what I did might harm a restaurant, but I couldn't let him keep insulting me. Patrice smiled gently and placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. You don't need to thank me, Sophia. I should be thanking you for your bravery. You've reminded us all of the real value of kindness and human dignity. Turning to the assembled team, Patrice spoke with conviction. From this day forward, let us remember that Leon is more than just fine dining. It's a place where we protect and honor everyone who works here. We will not bow to discrimination or the misuse of power, no matter the consequences. The room burst into applause again, heartfelt and resolute. Sophia looked around, her heart swelling with relief and gratitude. Though the future remained uncertain and daunting, she no longer felt alone. Patrice Bennett's bold stance had given her the strength to face whatever lay ahead. Patrice Bennett's firm, decisive declarations not only restored Sophia's confidence, but also opened an entirely new chapter in her life, one filled with turmoil and surprises she had never anticipated. The very next morning when she woke up and checked her phone, she was nearly stunned by the flood of notification calls and messages pouring into her inbox. Some anonymous diner had recorded the entire confrontation between Sophia and Ethan Caldwell at Leopan and posted it online that very night. Within hours, the short clip went viral, racking up millions of views and thousands of shares on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On social media, the hashtag #courage of Sophia instantly trended, sparking an unprecedented wave of debate about racism, inequality, and abuse of power. Sophia felt utterly overwhelmed by the sudden attention. A once low-profile server striving for a quiet life was now thrust into the glaring spotlight of public opinion. Reporters began gathering outside Leopan and even outside her modest Queens apartment, clamoring for interviews and photos. Overnight, Sophia became the focal point of a national story, an accidental symbol of bravery and simple decency. Messages and comments poured in from around the world. Many praised Sophia's actions as a living testament to resilience and courage in the face of injustice and prejudice. A Brooklyn College student wrote, "You've shown me and so many others that we must never bow our heads to injustice, no matter how powerful the opponent." Even celebrities spoke out in her support. Activists, artists, and prominent politicians shared the video, lauding the courage she displayed. Sophia had become an unwitting icon, a new voice of the oppressed, the wounded, and those pushed to society's margins by unfairness and bigotry. But alongside the outpouring of praise, a vicious tide of online backlash rose up. Racist and Caldwell supporters attacked her with hateful slurs and threats, calling her a troublemaker and accusing her of staging a scandal for fame. Some even warned that she would pay dearly for defaming Ethan Caldwell. Sophia had thought she was used to the invisible pressure of bias, but now she realized that the glare of media and public scrutiny could be far more terrifying. Insults and threats on social media left her uneasy, constantly on edge whenever she stepped outside. Her once safe sanctuary of home no longer felt secure, with reporters staking out her building, digging for every detail of her and Lily's personal life. One late evening, as Sophia prepared a simple dinner for Lily, a frantic knock at the door made her heart leap. She peered through the peephole to see two reporters wielding cameras pounding on her door. She pulled Lily close, placing a finger to her lips to hush her. Sophia's heart pounded as she held her breath until the reporters finally left. her fear for her daughter's safety and privacy hitting her like a physical blow. Sophia realized she was caught in a fear storm. On one side, public admiration and acclaim. On the other, the lurking danger of hate and retaliation. She felt drained and deeply anxious about what lay ahead. Yet every time she looked into Lily's innocent, trusting eyes, she vowed to stay strong, not just for herself, but for her little girl. In the days that followed, Patrice Bennett continued to shelter and support Sophia. She hired a private security team to escort Sophia to and from Leon. To Patrice, Sophia was no longer just a server. She had become the living embodiment of the values the restaurant stood for. Patrice made clear that she would stand by Sophia, protecting her with every resource at her disposal. Still, Sophia's greatest fear remained Ethan Caldwell. He had not resurfaced publicly since the incident, but rumors of his retaliation plan smoldered on. With his immense wealth and power, Ethan could potentially destroy the small, peaceful life Sophia had built for herself and Lily over the years. Yet, amid the swirling fear and pressure, Sophia no longer felt entirely alone. She recognized that her small but courageous act of standing up had inspired countless others, igniting a broad conversation about injustices and prejudices long ignored. And however many challenges and uncertainties the future might hold, Sophia knew she had no choice but to keep moving forward, to stand strong, to fight on, not only for herself, but for the millions watching her. A simple yet powerful symbol of courage and kindness in a world rife with injustice and inequality. Amid the media storm that showed no sign of dying down, each day felt like a new trial for Sophia. But that morning, when she received a direct call from Patrice Bennett, she sensed something truly extraordinary was unfolding. Patrice's voice, both moved and a little mysterious, gently announced, "Sophia, today we're expecting a very special guest at the restaurant. Someone who has specifically requested to meet you alone. I believe this will be a most meaningful encounter." Sophia's heart raced with equal parts excitement and curiosity. Despite having grown accustomed to sudden attention from celebrities and the press in recent days, she couldn't imagine what could make Patrice speak with such palpable anticipation. It wasn't until a sleek, unmarked car rolled up in front of Leon, and a familiar kindly face behind trademark glasses stepped out with gentle yet impactful smile, that Sophia understood exactly what was in store. The special guest was none other than Bill Gates. Patrice quickly greeted him and ushered him into a discreet VIP room where Sophia waited with her heart pounding. Once the door closed, Gates stepped forward and held out his hand, his tone warm and sincere. "Sophia Jenkins, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard so much about you and the incredible courage you've shown." Sophia rose, her hand trembling slightly as she shook his, her voice earnest and a little flustered. "Thank you so much, Mr. Gates. I'm truly surprised and deeply moved that you come to see me." Gates sat down, his demeanor approachable and unassuming, quite different from the image one might expect of one of the world's wealthiest men. He regarded Sophia with clear empathy and spoke slowly and authentically. "I watched the video of your confrontation with Ethan Caldwell. The way you stood up and resisted those hateful remarks moved me greatly. True courage is rare these days, especially in the face of power and wealth." Emotion welled in Sophia's eyes as she met his gaze firmly. "I simply couldn't remain silent in the face of that abuse. I believe no one should have to endure such treatment." Gates nodded, eyes filled with deep understanding. "You are absolutely right, Sophia. What you did has awakened many people's consciences, not just in America, but around the world. People are talking about injustice and racism, especially the discrimination faced by Black workers and other marginalized communities. It has given me much to reflect on." He paused, looking directly at her with renewed passion and seriousness. "I came here today to propose an idea that my colleagues and I have been developing. We want to launch a new initiative called Project Decency, a program designed to protect the rights of Black workers, the vulnerable, and anyone suffering injustice in the workplace." Sophia was silent for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. She looked up at him, her voice trembling with surprise and emotion. "Really, Mr. Gates? I don't know what to say. This is beyond anything I could have imagined." Gates offered a gentle, hopeful smile. "Absolutely, Sophia. You have sparked a movement far greater than you know. The courage you displayed needs to be amplified, and we would like you to be the face of Project Decency. We'll partner with nonprofits, legal experts, social advocates, and responsible businesses to drive meaningful change. His words felt like a grand door opening in Sophia's life. In her mind flashed memories of raising Lily alone in their humble Queens home, the pain of prejudice and discrimination, and that small yet brave moment at Leah Penn. She looked at Gates, her eyes shining but resolute. I am truly grateful for this remarkable opportunity. I never imagined someone like me could play such a meaningful role. I just worry I might not be up to the task. Gates shook his head gently, his encouragement steady and kind. Sophia, your greatest strength is your authenticity and the courage you've already demonstrated. That authenticity is what truly moves people. We don't need a professional activist. We need someone who truly understands the daily hardships faced by Black workers and the vulnerable. That person is you. Sophia felt her heart swell with intense emotion. Hearing this from Bill Gates, a man of immense influence, always standing for fairness and good, filled her with more confidence than ever before. She took a deep breath, her eyes alight with fresh hope and determination. I accept, Mr. Gates. I will do everything I can to contribute to this project. I want to help ensure that no one else has to suffer what I went through. Gates beamed, rising to shake her hand again, his voice warm and genuine. Thank you, Sophia. It will be a long journey with many challenges ahead, but I'm confident that with your courage and resolve, Project Decency will create lasting, impactful change. As Gates departed, Sophia remained in the room, her heart brimming with emotion, hope, and a weighty sense of responsibility. Above all, she knew she would no longer walk this path alone. This fateful meeting had given her a purpose larger than ever, to fight on, not just for herself, but for millions of vulnerable people awaiting protection and recognition. In the aftermath of Bill Gates' visit, Sophia stood frozen in the quiet VIP room of the Le Pen, her heart racing with emotions she had never experienced before. That meeting had entrusted her with a monumental responsibility, an opportunity to change not just her own life, but the lives of millions of vulnerable workers out there. It felt like she had walked through a grand doorway. Behind her lay days of quiet routine, ahead lay a meaningful but daunting journey. After accepting the role of spokesperson for Project Decency, Sophia quickly realized her life was once again swept up in the whirlpool of public scrutiny and media pressure. No longer simply the brave Black server who stood up to Ethan Caldwell, she had become a living symbol, a powerful representative for everyone suffering injustice, bigotry, and discrimination. Invitations for interviews flooded in from major newspapers, TV shows, and community forums of all sizes. One of her first high-profile appearances was a special interview on CNN. Sitting before the camera, Sophia could feel the invisible weight of millions of eyes watching her every word and gesture. Yet she also felt the full magnitude of the responsibility she now carried, the responsibility of a representative, a crucial voice in the fight against prejudice and discrimination. The host, a well-known journalist who regarded her with both admiration and empathy, asked earnestly, "Sophia, what gave you the strength to stand up to someone as powerful as Ethan Caldwell?" Sophia looked up, her eyes shining with determination and conviction. "I believe what made me strong wasn't anger, but self-respect and faith in kindness. I couldn't bear the thought of my daughter or anyone enduring what I had to endure. I firmly believe that every person deserves respect regardless of their skin color, status, or wealth." Her sincere, straightforward answer resonated deeply with the viewers nationwide. Messages of encouragement and solidarity poured in from heartfelt letters to late-night emails, all expressing that her small but courageous act had sparked empathy and inspired courage in countless people. However, alongside the overwhelming support, Sophia also began facing the harsh downside of fame and media power. Opponents, many harboring racist views or aligned with Ethan Caldwell's interests, launched campaigns to discredit and defame her. On social media, she endured countless attacks, slanders, rumors, and false allegations suggesting she was exploiting the incident for money and fame. Even though she never sought the spotlight, some adversaries spread outright lies to undermine her and her family's reputation. One evening, as Sophia soothed Lily to sleep, Her phone buzzed with hateful and threatening messages from anonymous senders. "Watch your back, Sophia. You've picked the wrong fight. You'll pay for defaming Ethan Caldwell." The cold brutality of those words made her chest tighten. She had known from the start this would not be an easy path, but facing such raw hatred still filled her with fear and anxiety. Throughout this ordeal, Patrice and Richard worked tirelessly to support and protect Sophia. Patrice hired additional security staff to escort Sophia safely to and from the restaurant and public events. Bill Gates himself stayed in regular contact, offering encouragement and advice on coping with unwanted media pressures. In one phone conversation, Gates reassured her, "Sophia, the most important thing right now is to stay strong in spirit. The louder the critics try to drown you out, the more they prove how meaningful your voice is. You are not alone. You speak for countless people who have no platform to speak." His heartfelt words were like a powerful tonic, helping Sophia stand firm. Every time she faced threats or insults, she reminded herself that this was a necessary battle, a vital journey, not just for her, but for Lily's future and for all those vulnerable voices waiting to be heard. One of her greatest challenges came from Ethan Caldwell himself, who continued his campaign behind the scenes. He leveraged his political and business connections to pressure potential partners of Project Decency, trying to block the initiative. But the more fiercely Ethan opposed her, the more public support and responsible corporate backing Sophia garnered. At the official launch ceremony for Project Decency, Sophia stood on stage as the project's lead spokesperson, gazing out at hundreds of attentive faces. She felt the weight of every word she spoke. Each story she shared infused with courage, authenticity, and a passionate hope for a better world. "I stand here today not to condemn anyone, but to say that we can no longer remain silent in the face of injustice and discrimination. If we stand together, we can change all of this." Thunderous applause filled the hall, an outpouring of empathy and solidarity. Sophia looked over the audience, her gaze steadier and more serene than ever. She knew this was only the beginning, and that the road ahead would be long and full of obstacles. But no matter how great the challenge, she understood one fundamental truth. She was no longer alone. She had become a powerful voice for millions of vulnerable workers, ready to face whatever came next in the fight for fairness, dignity, and decency that everyone deserves. That evening, when Sophia returned to Leon, the very restaurant where her altercation with Ethan Caldwell had played out, her emotions were a whirlwind. The familiar doors swung open, the crystal lights glittered overhead, and the solemn, deeply moving atmosphere made her heart swell. Tonight's familiar setting felt transformed, not just by the presence of hundreds of distinguished guests, social activists, and responsible business leaders, but by the fact that it was the official launch of Project Decency. Silently, Sophia stepped into Grand Ballroom, her eyes filling with emotion as she recognized so many familiar faces. On stage, Patrice Bennett stood beside Bill Gates, both gazing at Sophia with profound pride and admiration. Applause broke out as she climbed the podium, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and steely determination. She took a deep breath, looked out across the room, and spoke into the microphone with genuine confidence. "Tonight, I return to the very place where a small but deeply meaningful moment changed my life. It was right here that I stood up against discrimination, defending the one value I hold dearest, the dignity of every human being." She paused, meeting the rapt faces before her, then continued in a clear, resonant voice. "I never imagined that one simple act of resistance could spark such profound change. In these past days, I've witnessed both sides of society. Bravery, empathy, and overwhelming support on one side, and prejudice, hatred, and dark abuses of power on the other. Yet I've come to realize that kindness and human dignity are the strongest forces we have in any circumstance." Sophia spotted Patrice near the stage, her eyes shining with pride and emotion. Bill Gates nodded encouragingly, his expression full of faith in her. "Tonight, I'm honored to officially introduce Project Decency, a program created to protect the rights of our most vulnerable workers, especially within the Black community, and to combat racism in the workplace. This is a bold, ambitious step, but I believe that together we can achieve truly meaningful change." Powerful, heartfelt applause filled the room. Sophia paused, her voice softening as she delivered a message she felt was vital. In recent days, I often ask myself, can the small courage of one ordinary person really make a difference? The answer I found is yes. A single act of kindness and bravery can move millions of hearts and ignite a wave of change more powerful than any authority. She locked eyes with attendees all around the hall, feeling the weight and responsibility of her words. I want everyone here to understand that fighting injustice and prejudice is not just someone else's duty. It's all of ours. When we remain silent in the face of injustice, we become complicit. But when we speak up, stand for truth, and protect each other's dignity, we harness extraordinary power to transform society. The applause swelled again, many rising to their feet in a sustained ovation as a profound tribute to Sophia. In that moment, she felt more centered and resolute than ever before. She realized her courage not only reclaimed her own respect, but it made her the emblem of a much larger movement. After the ceremony, Patrice and Bill Gates approached her. Patrice spoke with genuine warmth. "Sophia, I am so proud of you. You've shown everyone that no amount of power or money can overcome the strength of dignity and kindness." Bill Gates placed a hand on her shoulder and said warmly, "From now on, Sophia, you're not just a spokesperson for Project Decency. You are its heart. Together, we will change the world." In that instant, Sophia looked around Lyon, the place that had once witnessed her deepest pain and hurt, and saw instead its capacity for healing, strength, and purpose. She still weighed her future, whether to stay at Lyon, which had become part of her life, or to devote herself full-time to Project Decency as an activist. But one thing was clear. Her life now had a powerful, unmistakable purpose. As the event ended, Sophia stepped out into the bustling Manhattan night, moonlight casting a gentle glow over the street. She smiled softly, filled with peace and conviction. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I know I will always fight for kindness, courage, and the dignity every person deserves." That was her final and strongest message to everyone, that each of us, however small we may feel, has the power to perform extraordinary acts through courage, kindness, and steadfast dignity. Sophia Jenkins' story stands as living proof that one person's bravery and decency can spark tremendous social change. If you were in her shoes, would you dare to defend your own dignity and that of others, even against the might of money and power? If this story inspired you, please like and share this video with your friends and family to spread its positive message. And remember to subscribe to our channel for more compelling, inspiring stories. Thank you for being with us.